Hey guys, welcome back to Chaos Core Tech. My name's Garrett, and today we are going to be making some goblins. Now, this video is a little bit different than my normal style of video, so bear with me and let me know what you think down in the comments. Alright, it's time for some goblins. Now, I love D&D, and I've been GMing a game for my friends recently, and I've kind of wanted to make D&D miniatures for a really long time, but I never really felt comfortable doing it. I just didn't feel like my skills were up to par. It's just something that I've wanted to do but never quite pulled the trigger on, so I'm finally doing it, finally pulling the trigger. And this is quite a bit different from what I normally do on the channel. So one, forgive me for the video being a bit rambly, and two, I'm just going to talk a bit about sort of the process of making these miniatures, because previously, in most of our videos here on the channel, we've done like existing characters and stuff like that, and there's not a lot of creativity that goes into it. Like, we just pick a character and that's pretty much where the creativity ends. Sometimes there was a pose involved, but I just mostly looked up reference images, and then it was more technical. It was more like figuring out how to make that 3D shape happen, right? So I've always wanted to move more into the creative side and like making my own sort of designs. And I feel like these D&D characters are sort of a good way to do that, because they are established, they do have a look, so there is some sort of expectation of what they should be. It's not just freeform, and as any creative types know, restriction can be a good thing. Otherwise, there's just too many possibilities. But there's enough freedom in there that you can kind of do what you want. Goblins are a good example, because like, I'll put them up on the screen here, or Chelsea will. Thanks, Chelsea, if you're editing this. You've got goblins that look like this, that are just kind of goofy looking. They have really round faces and a little more cartoony. And then you also have goblins that look like this, and they're a little more realistic looking, and nasty in the face, and pretty much everything in between. And even like the D&D monster manual, the goblins in there don't look like what I picture a goblin to be. They're really, really strong looking. They're super muscular. There's short, muscular things. But I've always pictured goblins as more of a scavenger type. That they wouldn't have the abundance of food necessary to get a bulky body like that. So I've always pictured them as a little more scrawny, a little more scraggly, and so that's what I went with. And I tend to like the more realistic looking goblins, or at least that's kind of where I wanted to go for this one specifically. So I pulled a little bit from a bunch of different references, and I just kind of went with it. This is really the first design I've done like this, so I don't really have a style or anything like that. It's just kind of, I just kind of went for something. I also wanted to mention that you see me starting from a base model there. That was just a human male model that I created a while ago. It wasn't for a video or anything, but it was kind of to just practice on that type of thing. I recreated the body from the Z-spheres that I had there, but I used the head and just kind of like pulled and pushed in different places to make it more goblin-like. And it ended up saving me a bunch of time, so I think in the future I'm going to try and do that more. Like, I'm trying to build up a library of things that I can use, so I don't have to recreate everything every time I want to model something, and, you know, especially things like weapons, that will really, really help. I know developing a style takes a lot of time, but it's something I'm working towards. And as the next couple of models come out, I think you'll see that I'm kind of meandering and trying out a couple different styles. So I'm really, really interested in your guys' feedback. All comments and criticism are welcome down in the comments. And be brutally honest. I mean, you don't have to be a dick, but, you know, let me know what you actually think. Don't worry about hurting my feelings, because I want to be really, really good at this, and I know I'm not. I know there's a lot of things I can do to improve, and I'm working towards that. So I'm really, really interested in your honest feedback. So let me know down there. Another point that I wanted to make with these miniatures is I wanted the models to be reusable, because one of my biggest gripes, I guess, with 3D modeling in general, it was just, you know, I would model something in ZBrush and it would take me a long time, and then once it was done, that's pretty much it. Like, I couldn't really do anything else with that model because I would model it in the pose and it would just be there. And so I liked the idea of reusability of models, like modeling them more in like a video game or a movie sense, where you model them in a pretty standard pose and then you take them into a program like Blender and retopologize, rig, and basically give it a skeleton so it can move. Now there's a lot that goes into that, so I'm not going to really get into it because it's not as interesting to talk about for me. Maybe I'll get into that at some point, but this isn't the time for it. So I went through that whole process and I spent a lot of time learning how to do that. And there are some spots on this Goblin that aren't great because this was the first time I had really done it. But it was really, really interesting to see sort of the pipeline and how many different softwares are involved trying to get these models to a workable state. Now, this method of like retopologizing and rigging it and everything like that makes the modeling process take like phenomenally longer. It probably takes 3 times as long to just make the model, but that's really cool. I can just swap out the weapon and change the pose and I have a different miniature. And in the future, it's really easy to add things to this. I can make new poses, put new weapons in. I can even create new clothing. I mean, I have to go through the process of like rigging those up as well, but I don't have to recreate the Goblin body unless I want something significantly different. So it's a lot more flexible and a lot more fun. So I got one with a scimitar and then one with a bow, just like the monster manual has. That way, if you want to throw some goblins at your players, you can have some guys that are up close and ready to fight, and then you can have some archers in the back. So I used Blender and got them all rigged up, all the weights painted and everything, so they move the way that they should for the most part. And then I posed it, put a weapon in its hand, and exported it back out to ZBrush to sort of touch it up and, you know, make sure that everything was okay. And then, you know, I run it through my usual softwares to just kind of make sure that the model's somewhat cleaned up and printable. Then we printed them on the Elegoo Pro, and we'll put up some pictures right now so you can see them just a little bit closer. Well, that was my take on some D&D goblins in miniature form. So let me know what you think. If you want to get your hands on these files, we have them over at our Patreon. You can check that out in the description below. These videos come out a little bit after the fact, so we actually have 2 more full sets of minis over on Patreon right now, and we have some terrain up there and some bases. Also, a huge thank you to this month's Chaos Cores over on Patreon, Midnight Giant, and Joseph Pogorski. It's because of you guys that we are able to keep this channel up and running, so thank you. Thank you guys for watching. I'm really interested to see what you have to say, so leave some comments down below letting me know. And until next time, keep creating.